All right. We are live. Welcome back to the
Yay.
cave. Let me just adjust you just a little bit.
Okay.
I can move you around a little bit as well in that circle.
Okay, here. Let me just. Okay, now I'm good.
Good?
You can move me if you need to.
Okay. Excellent.
Awesome.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to yet another week. It's another week down, and it is My Business World Live, the weekly live stream, Facebook and YouTube. Monitoring some comments on Facebook primarily. So if you're on Facebook, facebook.com/ or if you're on YouTube, facebook.com/ New Work Revolution, you should see the stream. You can throw a comment in there if you so desire, but otherwise listen to the deep, dark wisdoms of Brandon's mind as we
Oh my
move
God,
forward.
that's deep and dark.
That's right. That's why I said it. It made sense to me.
Nailed it.
Well,
Nailed it.
first, how's the week gone, my friend?
You know what? It's been a pretty good week. Relatively productive. Our barber shop here in the neighborhood opened up, so I got my hair cut, even though
Nice.
I'm wearing a hat.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty amazing. So I've never been so appreciative to go to the barber shop in my life.
That was one of the things I didn't anticipate. I'm definitely on the fast track to the man bun. It's
Yeah.
I can shave the sides of my head just fine, but the top I'm like it's just I'm just letting it roll, and so we'll see we'll see where we get. It's the involuntary man bun. I have no desire for it, but hey, it's what I'm going. It's where I'm headed.
Nice.
But anyway, all right, man. Well, let's dive into the week, see how some things are going. I'll take the blame, and I think I might have mentioned this last week as well because you were doing the event. But in my brilliance, I didn't turn on, or I left the mute on the entire stream that we did a couple of weeks ago. So I'm amazing. And as you know, I just figured watching us without sound is as much a treat as anything. So we left that for everybody. But so this week we're going to recover, and as far as I can tell, we have sound. So I think we're good to go. But yeah, let's dive into some of the fun. So we had there was a few things we talked about a couple weeks ago that were really interesting that we want to bring around, and just some things that are happening it's interesting to see businesses' reactions, right? I mean, that is really what
Yeah.
I would say our theme is it's like how businesses react and leaders and managers react to challenge is always interesting. And I'm going to just say interesting, even though it's a bland adjective and it doesn't really mean much. Depending on who you are, it's either entertaining, it's disturbing, it's any of the above, I guess, all of
Right.
the above. And so yeah, let's dive into a couple of these things.
Well, listen, just for context sake, for people who don't move forward with technology and different things because they're worried about screwing things up, I tell people, man, we've been doing teleseminars, webinars, videos forever, and we still screw it up.
That's
So
right.
just let 2 weeks be a word of encouragement for you. If you're hesitant in that, look, you wonder like, well, what if I make a mistake? And I'm just going to help put your fears at ease by letting you know you're going to make a mistake.
Absolutely.
So, so don't worry about that. So, look, what I want to talk about today is really something that's near and dear to my heart. New Work Revolution was founded, and we created New Work Revolution because people work in work environments right now that aren't very good, and they haven't been very good for a long time. Now, look, since the Industrial Revolution, let's say this, it's gotten better, but we're not anywhere near where we need to be. In fact, I think a lot of the issues that go on now at work are a little bit more subtle. However, from time to time, we get examples that help us to see how how far we need to go to really get to a place where I feel like people are working in work environments where they're treated with dignity, where they're treated with respect, where they're given consideration for all the different things that they have going on in their lives as a human being. And New Work Revolution, we exist to eliminate and eradicate terrible leadership from work organizations. And here's the thing about this: this is a feat that we will not accomplish in our lifetimes. And so this is something that we hope will, continue to perpetuate, and where we'll continue to see growth and gains through not only the work that we do at New Work Revolution, but through the work that I know a lot of other people do in this space to really help leaders get it right. But here's the thing: why do we do this? Some people think, well, it's really not that necessary. Workplaces aren't that bad as they used to be. But the reality is they are. And I look no further than an article that was brought to my attention on The Verve that was about the scooter company, The Bird. So the Bird, if you live in a metro area, you've seen probably Bird scooters littering the landscape of your downtown area. And listen, I'll be the first one to admit that I've ridden a Bird scooter, and you know what? It's actually kind of fun. It's fun to ride around downtown in a scooter, and I'll tell you this: it's a hell of a lot faster than driving a car
Yeah.
in a downtown area. And so, look, they're fun, they're useful. I think there's probably some things that we need to figure out in terms of, how they're set up and how they're presented, in terms of how they look in the downtown area. But here's the thing: the Bird is like one of those tech companies, and I think we see this a lot in Silicon Valley, where they just become one of these companies where their idea just really takes hold, and they start to get a lot of investor funding, and they
Mhm.
start to grow really quickly. And the guys who run it, they're on cloud nine, and there's nothing worse, I think, in society, honestly, than young men with
Mhm.
money.
Yeah.
For some reason, young men with money just don't know how to handle it. And it's not to say that young women with money don't have their share of issues, right? But as a man, I just see how we act as young men with money, and it's really atrocious.
Oh yeah.
And so when COVID-19 hit, the world starts to slow down. And obviously, you can see where a company like the Bird really suffers
Mm.
in the time of quarantine, because people aren't going to want to use shared resources. They're not going to be around downtown areas or metro areas utilizing public forms of transportation. And if they are utilizing it, it's just if they absolutely have
Mhm.
to, not because they want to. So you could see where a company like that would really have a slowdown in revenue. And so, as a lot of companies did who had a slowdown in revenue, they furloughed employees and laid employees off. Now, I don't know if laying people off and furloughing employees is always the best strategy, but it is the strategy for companies who aren't prepared financially to deal with hardships. So
Mhm.
when you see these shutdowns occur, immediately people furloughed and laid employees off. Now, we could get into a whole philosophical argument about whether that's the right thing to do or not, but the reality is that it happened. And so here's the thing with this: here's how the Bird decided that they were going to do it. And they recounted a story of a young woman who really enjoyed working with the company, put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it, right? When you work in a startup, you're working 14, 15, 16 hours a day, just trying to really make things happen. You're trying to get the most out of the limited resources that you have to start to get to a place of viability and profitability. So this woman recounts getting an email that was very short, very to the point, saying, "Hey, we need you on a conference call at whatever time in the morning, and it's going to be a Zoom conference." So they invited 450 people to this conference. Now, the irony is they didn't even have the bandwidth on their conference line to accommodate the number of people that they invited. So some people couldn't even get onto the call who were invited
They
to
were
it.
on the free
Now
plan still.
yeah, they get onto the call, and a person comes up and gives them a 2-minute prepared speech, letting these people know that they no longer have a job with the Bird and that their access was revoked immediately. As soon as the message finished, their screens went dark, their access to Slack and all the other internal communication tools of the company gone. They're asked to pack up their stuff and vacate the premises immediately. Now, just in a general sense of humanity, I feel like we can do this differently. I feel like there's a better way to let someone know who's poured their heart and soul into a job, and not only because they've poured their heart and soul into a job, but because they're human beings who have families,
Hmm.
who have goals, who have hopes, who have dreams, who have fears, who have concerns. These are people who deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. There's nothing dignified about treating a group of people in such a callous, casual manner.
Hmm.
Now, the reason why we do this is number one, I think sometimes we forget that the people who we work with are human beings. They're not tools,
Hmm.
they're human beings. And if you own a company, if you lead people, your people are not a tool for your success. They're human beings that are trying to get along in this world the best that they can. And so treating them in that manner where they are a tool, it's like just saying, well, I don't want this hammer anymore. I'm going to throw it away because like later down the road, I can just buy a new hammer. Doesn't work that way. The other thing is part of leadership is rolling up your sleeves and not being a coward.
Hmm.
And if you can't look someone in the eye and lay them off, you are not qualified for leadership. You are literally not qualified for leadership. If you don't have the courage to look someone in the eye and tell them they no longer have a job here, you are not qualified to be a manager. You're not qualified to be a leader. And so these people should have been told personally that they don't have a job. And I don't care how long that takes you. If that takes 2 weeks, then it takes 2 weeks.
Hmm.
But the way you've done it is so callous and so terrible. It was so undignified. Now, I would love to tell you that, hey, Brandon, things are tough. People are scared. Let's give these guys the benefit of the doubt. I bet that's what people are thinking right now who are listening to me talk about this. But here's the thing. As people get laid off, guess what they start doing? They start talking.
Yeah.
They don't have a job anymore, so they're like, you know what, let me tell you about some of the ugly things about working in our work environment. And one of the things that makes me sad about young men is sometimes we adopt this kind of bro mentality,
Hmm.
right, where we start acting like we're infallible. We start really thinking that we're more important and smarter than we really are, and then we
Absolutely.
start acting that way. And unfortunately, in this culture, what it sounded like is, a bunch of kind of what they called frat boys
Hmm.
doing, and I'm part of a fraternity. I hate hearing that kind of mentality or whatever. I don't know if these guys are even part of a fraternity or
Yeah.
not, but there's a stereotype that goes
Absolutely.
along with that that's unfortunate. And you know what? It just sounded like these guys were horrible people to work with, constantly treating people with a lack of dignity and respect, really, behaving in manners that were immature, inappropriate,
Hmm.
you name it. This was kind of indicative of the kind of culture that the bird operates in uh, as a whole. And to me, it's really unfortunate to see what's happened, not only in Silicon Valley, but just in some of these young startup companies. I mean, we thought Uber was an isolated incident,
Yeah.
maybe, but what we realize is the more we get behind the scenes of these companies, the more that people don't, the more that there's things that we don't know about that are ugly.
Yep.
And the reason why people don't talk about it is because they don't want to lose their jobs.
Yeah.
People are so concerned with losing their job, they'll put up with any amount of bullshit that they encounter in a work environment just so they still have gainful employment. And I'm telling you, for you who are employees who put up with this, number one, you don't have to put up with
Hmm.
that. Because let me tell you a dirty little secret about employers versus employees. As an employer, I need you more than you need me. I need you.
Don't tell everybody
And
that.
so
Stop.
I need you more than you need me.
Yep.
And if I don't treat you with respect, you have other options, because there are companies out there that treat their employees with respect.
Yep.
And the more people learn in a free market that that behavior is not okay, then the more okay our society will be in creating work environments that really work. But we won't do this if we don't hold people accountable. And you not saying anything holds people accountable. Now, I'm not survivor shaming, right?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say that you brought this on or this is your fault as an employee, but all I'm saying is you have the permission to say things, and you should say things, and don't put up with poor work treatment
Yeah.
because you need a job. It's not a good reason for that. And if you're an employer, shame on you. You know better. And the New Testament talks about this. Jesus said, and the Apostle Paul and different people said, like, woe to the teachers, woe to the leaders, because you're going to be held to a much higher standard than the rest of us. And so that is a huge calling. That's a huge responsibility. And when I look at that story with the bird, I just think, man, it's really sad
Yeah.
to see that people are treated in that manner in today's day and age, but it still goes on and it's really prevalent. So, Billy, before we get into the other story, anything you want to say about that?
Well, I think it's interesting. Well, and part of our mission, I guess, is to create and is to work with companies to create the environments where these employees can move to, right? And it's like we're never going to be able to connect with every company, especially because companies like that are not interested in changing. At least, I mean, initially they might be forced to through public shaming and everything else, and that's great. Actually, that's better than not changing at all. I'd rather them be forced, but regardless, not by the hand of government, by all means. That's not going there. But regardless, if we can create these environments, and if employees and other people can realize that there are alternatives too to this, like you said, like they don't want to speak up because they want to keep a job, but they're also not looking for an alternative in most cases. I mean, some people are, but I'm always surprised too at how few people, like, they might be miserable and they want to keep their job, but they're not at least like exploring the option. You don't need to just quit and run. You know what I mean? Like, but it's like explore options, because there are employers that are doing it right. And there is options out there. Even right now, there are people hiring in spite of this challenge. There are still companies hiring. Not to say that it's an easy game right now by any means, but but that's one of the things as well, I think, as employees, is to kind of require it or demand it a little bit more too of your, and not blaming the employee by any stretch, but by doing that, you can improve your environment in many cases, whether you stand up in the right situation, or just start looking for what really fits for you. Don't settle, right? Don't settle for that, and look for something that will actually bring you a little, the level of fulfillment that you're looking for, and because it's out there. And that's our goal, is to help leaders develop companies that can offer that. And that's where the free market starts to work. Once employees realize that I don't have to stay here, I can go somewhere else, right? I can go somewhere else that is more powerful, that I can connect with. And then hopefully, we're on the side that working with those leaders to create those environments. But it never is easy. That's the other piece. And I think, you have to have the courage to do the hard thing and to face your team in situations like this, but you never should like it. I mean, so it's not like you need to be good at it and you need to be this pro, and it needs to be like it's some sort of weird polished experience. It having to let somebody go is not a pleasant experience, and it never will be. It never should be, frankly. So that's the other piece, is to say that to have the courage doesn't mean you should like it, or that it's this favorite part of being a leader. I mean, no leader wants to have to do that, and they shouldn't. But you definitely, when you do, you need to be able to sit down and have that honest conversation, and really treat them as a person, and for that next step. Because just because they weren't a good fit for you doesn't mean they're not a great fit somewhere else, and that's a key piece too. I mean, as leaders, as you mentioned, we sometimes treat them as tools, and we're like, this tool sucks. If a leader starts thinking too much in that direction, it's like, that just might not be the right tool for the job. You had two hammers, you needed a hammer and a screwdriver. Don't think that second hammer sucked. I mean, it just wasn't a screwdriver, so you're okay. So even at the tool level, but still, it's one of those pieces where you don't have to like it, and they are, they're just chugging along, like you said, in their own way and looking for their own dream, and we need to just work through that together. So it's never an easy thing. That's the only thing I'd add, I guess, is it's never easy, but it definitely needs to be done, or you need to have the courage to do it for sure. Excellent.
Absolutely. Well said. So, right in our own backyard, Billy, speaking of this, we live, for those of you who are watching this who are not familiar with Utah or Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City is in Salt Lake County, right? Okay, that's easy enough. And just to the south of us is another county where there's a school that resides there. I think it's called Brigham Young University, and it's
That's what
called
I heard,
Utah
yeah.
County. Okay. Now, I'm not saying, I guess as I start this, it's going to sound negative towards Utah County. Um,
It
I'm
might be a
not
little
saying
bit.
that people in Utah County are dumber than people in Salt Lake County or anything like that.
We just don't like
It,
them as much.
they have not
I'm just
as
kidding.
good of a college for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but in all seriousness, here's the thing. We saw an article here recently that there were two companies in Utah County, and these companies have not been named, but I'm guaranteeing you someone's going to blow the whistle on who these companies are sooner than later, who decided that they were going to just kind of beat their own path here, beat their own drum by making sure that everyone came back to work immediately. So as soon as the governor here in Utah relaxed the restrictions, now we still have some
Yep.
restrictions, but they're relaxed. They made everyone come back to work, even those who had been infected with COVID, who were still in the process of getting over the disease. As a result, 48% of their workforce in one of the companies was infected by COVID. Now, here's the thing about this, right? As I've kind of advanced in my marriage, and I've been to marriage counseling and done my own personal therapy, one of the things that I've learned, and I've been historically a very argumentative person. Okay, so I've been a person who never met an argument that I didn't like. Now, here's the thing that I've learned, right? In a relationship, especially, or just in the world in general, not all hills are worth dying on.
Yeah.
Not all hills are worth dying on. And I think that, in the world we live in today, we are inundated with people who are trying to die on hills that really don't need to be
Hmm.
died upon at all. Who
Yep.
cares, right? And so here's the thing about this. There's a lot of people who are blessed right now with the ability to work remotely. And if you can have your team work remotely, and you know what, in Utah County predominantly, what the kind of businesses that exist there, and there are a lot of successful companies that have originated out of that Utah County area in the
Yeah.
tech space. Most of these companies are technology oriented. They probably don't need to meet.
Yep.
They probably don't need to be in the same office space. They can probably work remotely and they're just fine. But you know what? Here's the funny thing that I'm hearing about from a lot of leaders. And it's this, my team isn't working hard enough because they're working remotely. And they're not doing the things that I want them to do because they're working remotely. And let me tell you this, if you feel like your team is not giving 100% during this time, number one, I guarantee you don't know for sure
Hmm.
because you're not measuring their results.
Yep.
You're just looking at their perceived work ethic.
Yep.
And here's the other part about this. If your team isn't producing or performing, the only common denominator in that is their crappy leader.
Hmm.
So I would suggest that if you don't like how your team's performing in a remote work environment, that you go ahead and change your behavior as a leader rather than blaming it on your team for their ineffective behavior. And also understand that there's going to have to be some grace in this kind of a work environment because people are trying to figure it out.
Yep.
They're trying to figure out how to balance teaching their kids, being at home, and all the other things that come along with this. But here's the thing about this: employees care about doing a great job.
Yep.
Employees don't come to work and think, you know what, I'm going to suck at work today. It's going to be awesome. My boss is going to think I'm a loser. It's going to be, I can't wait. It's going to be great. Employees aren't saying that. But here's employers who still think that their employees are doing that. So they rush people back to work. And why? There's no reason for it. And
Yep.
listen, Billy and I, we tend to have a libertarian bent on politics. Billy, I hope you don't mind me just including
You
you in
outed
that,
me.
right?
You outed me. Okay, go ahead.
And so here's the thing, man. Like, I don't necessarily like government intervention in anything. But
Yep.
at the same time, it's like, hey, if people are scared, if people are nervous, if people are worried about being in a work environment, don't make them come back to work. And if, for God's sake, if they're sick,
Yeah, that's just
stay
insane.
home.
Just
Like,
take
listen,
it to
like
another level.
that's my policy, corona or no corona.
Yeah.
If I talk to an employee in the morning in the phone and they sound like shit, I tell them, don't come to work. I
Yeah.
don't want to see you.
Yeah.
And this was before corona ever happened. Like, I don't want you at work if you're sick. I don't want your sickness. I don't want it. I don't want your flu. I don't
Yep.
want your diarrhea. I don't want any of it. So, if you're not feeling well, stay home for God's sakes. Don't make your employees come back to work.
Yep.
And here's the thing that you've told your employees by doing this: you don't care about them.
Yep.
You care more about your own principles. You care more about your own ideals. You care more about your own profit than you do about your people. And I'm telling you this: if you value profit over people, it will catch up to you in the long run. It's not a
Every time.
sustainable strategy for building a healthy company with a healthy culture.
Yep.
Now, you can build a company doing that, but it won't be as healthy. It won't thrive in the way that other cultures thrive
Yep.
who have been willing to do this for their team. So you're just telling your team, if you're making them go back to work and they don't have to, that I don't care.
Yep.
I don't care about you. I don't care if you get sick. And heaven forbid, if one of these employees who's gotten sick, Billy and I were talking about this earlier, what if one of them dies?
Yeah. Well,
Man,
it's gonna escalate to a whole nother level if that ends up happening. If one of those
you don't know.
48%.
Like, there might be an underlying health condition with one of
Yep.
these employees or something going on that no one's aware of, that this employee now gets sick and they pass away because of that. And for what? There was nothing good that came
Yep.
from it. Now, look, I get it if you're a service based business. Guess what? My barber opened up this weekend. I went in and saw him because I know that's how he makes a living, man.
Yeah.
That's how he puts food on the table, and I'm happy to do it. I'm willing to take that personal risk in order to support him and his family, and also so my hair isn't in a man bun like Billy's.
Yeah, that's
So,
right.
look, I just think that these are examples of leaders who work in a way that they're not keeping their finger on the pulse of their employees. They're not demonstrating true caring and understanding for their team members. And the reasoning behind it really doesn't make any sense. There's nothing good that will come from that. You have died on a hill that you shouldn't have died
Yep.
on. And look,
Nothing
if you
noble about
think
it.
that doesn't impact your team and the way they respect you and the way they orient towards you in the future, you are wrong. And I'll tell you this too. At some point in time, it's going to come out here in Salt Lake and Utah County of who that business was or those two businesses
Yeah.
were. And I'm telling you, there's going to be a backlash
It's gonna
as
be
a result of
exciting.
it. It's going to be interesting. So don't do that. Just don't do it. Like, just find out. Look, if your team is scared to come into work, just honor it.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like, don't judge it. Don't be pissed about it. Just honor it. Because
Well,
there's other
yeah.
people who are fine to come in, and that's okay too.
Yep. Well, in a climate like this, I mean, they have absolute just cause to be worried. You might not believe, I mean, because there's a lot of political, fire behind things and evidence here and there and whatever. But regardless, I mean, you can't blame someone for being nervous about a situation like this. That's what's crazy is that someone would get mad because what? Because the entire world shut down its economy over this thing and you're worried about it. That's weird. I mean, come on. It's insane that anyone would think that, let alone expecting any level of productivity from a team that is struggling in that way, right? Let's force them back in the office to, I mean, first of all, if you're crazy sick, you're probably not getting squat done. So it's like,
Yeah.
so that's just pointless anyway. I mean, it's just, even at a practical level, it doesn't make sense. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, this is just some sort of weird power trip and a fear-based move, because maybe economically the company's struggling. And so out of fear, they do a knee-jerk crazy thing like force everyone in the office because somehow that'll fix it, When
Yeah.
it's obviously, think through it a few levels. It doesn't make sense on any front other than just an emotionally charged decision, by a leader that didn't at least sleep on it. I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah. And look, I'm not saying that we should have shut down or we shouldn't have shut
Yep.
down. Look, I mean, I don't really know. I mean, I really don't. I mean, it seems like, people have a lot of opinions about this, but here's the thing. We've let the cat out of the bag. We've already started this process. We've already created the fear and the hysteria.
Mm-hmm.
Now we got to live with it. As a leader, we've got to live with that. And you know what? That's part of our jobs,
Yep.
is to figure that out and navigate tough waters. People are scared whether we want them to be or not.
Yep.
It's already here.
Yep.
We can't make the fear go away. All we can do is kind of honor that with people as best we can and be supportive as much as we possibly can.
Yep.
And listen, if someone decides they want to come back to work permanently, you may have to look for someone who wants to come back to work, and you may need to replace certain employees, and that's okay too. We're not
Yep.
saying that you have to keep someone on the payroll, because unfortunately, because the government gets involved in things and they don't always think it through. I don't think, right?
Yeah.
Look, they gave people such a great incentive to be unemployed
Yeah.
that some people don't want to go back to
Yep,
work. And look,
yep.
I don't think that's everyone. I think that's that's the minority of people who don't want to go back to work. Because look, who wants to sit at home all day? most normal people,
Yeah.
they don't
Would
want to sit
yeah.
home all day with nothing to do, right? And so they're not trying to, they're either home with their kids working there, or they're working at a
Yeah.
job. People want purpose. They have purpose. They operate with purpose. They're not trying to do that. But obviously, we're running into situations where people want to stay home because the incentive's too good
Yeah.
for them to go back to work.
Yep.
Fine, move on. Just move on. You're not going to convince them otherwise. Just find someone else who's willing to come in, who wants to come in, who wants a job, and move forward from there.
Yep.
And that's all you can do. But the optics of these situations that we talked about are so awful.
Yep.
And look, this is not just like a one-off situation. These are things that happen every single day.
Yeah.
We just don't hear about all of them.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, and especially, I mean, smaller companies. There's just crazy decisions happening left and right. If they only have a couple employees, it's not going to make the news most of the time, right? It's just that's
Right.
just a reality. So it's and it's so often these emotionally charged decisions. We're just not thinking through it. And as a leader, I mean, leaders in general, when it comes to deciding your next move, you deal with the situation at hand. The battle is before you. You shouldn't even be concerned with what you wished would have happened or what you think should have happened or the politics or the whatever. None of that matters, because at the end of the day, now you just got to look where the pieces are, where the regulations are, where this is our new environment. I now know the landscape, and I got to play within this landscape. I can't just say, well, that hill shouldn't even be there, so we're going to just march through it. And that's what I feel like a lot of business owners and leaders do, is they just, especially if it gets charged in weird emotional ways, is we worry, we allow those opinions to impact decision making in a way that it shouldn't be involved. You can have those opinions, but to allow them to impact your decisions when your decision needs to be based on the facts on the ground. Things are this way. This is how people feel. That is what's happening. Whether you think it's a conspiracy or not, or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's still there. So you're going to have to deal with it. And we need to make sure that we're looking at the current landscape, but when we're making these decisions, and not what we wish would have happened or could have or anything else. You know what I mean? So it's just
Right.
it's interesting how we tend to pull that into our decision process more than we should.
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, if you're a leader, just think about how you're leading, how you're showing up, and put your best foot forward for
Yep.
your team, and be a servant leader. Be someone who is looking to serve, not someone who's looking to be served,
Yeah.
as a leader.
Absolutely. Awesome, man. Well, yeah. Rant over.
There it is. Done.
This
I'm
week's.
going to step off the soapbox.
That's right. That's a step back. All right, man. Well, excellent. Well, on all of those notes, we also, I mean, talking about leadership and management, we've recently released a training course that we put out to really address a lot of these specific issues that we're talking about. And so many of them are foundational at just your core of who you are as a leader or as a manager. And so this course was put together recently. It just came out this last week. We're pretty excited about it. Tell us a little bit more about the course, Brandon, from your perspective. You're
Yeah,
the
I mean,
face of most of it.
the management training course is really just something that, like, I just think back to when I got my first leadership assignment, and I thought I was so smart. I was 25 years old. I thought I knew all these things about leadership, and I thought I was so educated. And then I got into a leadership situation, and I realized, man, I don't know anything about leading people. I got mediocre results. My team didn't like working with me. Their results were bad. I was a terrible leader in a lot of ways because I blame them for our failure. I didn't look at myself in that situation. And so I just, I really think about, like, where do people struggle in management? And I think bigger companies try to educate people on management, but look, just because someone's good at a job doesn't mean they should be a manager
Yep.
of people. I mean, it's a completely two different sets of skills. And at the time I was good at sales, but that didn't mean I was good at management. I mean, I
Yep.
thought maybe those two things would correlate, and they really didn't correlate all that well. And that's the case for a lot of people, is the skills that made them good at the technical proficiencies of their job don't necessarily translate to management and
Yeah.
leadership. And so this is just about, look, if you're in a management position, how do you really build the skills of your team. And so we set up the course by kind of introducing the philosophy, and we talk about, helping leaders and managers identify how they want to lead and who they want to be as a leader. And then we just give them a lot of tools on how to communicate, how to confront, how to plan, how to be accountable so that you can hold others accountable. And there's a lot of things about training and development, giving feedback, and all the different mechanisms and tools that you would want to have in place to make yourself an effective manager. Who needs this? Anyone who has people who report directly to me. Or directly to you. So even if you're a CEO,
Hmm.
you have someone who reports to you. You need to manage them, and you need to be a manager to those people. And so this is for anyone who's in a leadership or management position who wants to just get some basics and some foundational things in place so that they can grow in their ability to lead. And because I recognize for a lot of people, they don't have confidence in their leadership or management, this will allow them to have more confidence in their leadership and management because they'll feel like they've been given some building blocks that they can utilize in their interactions with their team on a day-to-day basis. And to me, that's really powerful because when you get promoted, it feels really lonely. It feels really scary because now you realize that there's a lot of people that you're accountable to in this process, and it's really a big deal. So we wanted to put this course together to really give people tools, resources, and confidence in order to be able to do that well, especially for CEOs that we work with and owners that we work with who they don't feel like they have the skills and ability to train their management team on how to manage.
Yeah.
They're looking for help to do that, and we've put together a really affordable way for people to get access to that training so that they can have that support, and then they can be great managers and leaders for their team.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, and that's a big piece of it as well. If you're a business owner and have other managers that you've hired, or you've got a couple of people, this you can definitely take advantage of this for them, right? To be able to connect, get the course, and have it be part of your kind of process for whether it be for promotion or just advancement and just enhancing and upskilling the managers that you do have with you, let alone yourself. I mean, that's what we're saying. It really, they're all the leadership is occurring and management is occurring at all those levels. So we've set it up so there are options for that. If you've got multiple managers, you're just a manager yourself or whatever it might be, there are definitely options. It's worth checking out, absolutely. And that is the strange irony of the work environment, how we never hire for the skills that are going to be required for the next level. It's always based on, wow, you beat that level. I guess here's the next challenge. It's like a video game or something. I don't know. It's you're on to
Absolutely.
level 2. Good luck. Let's see how you do here.
Yep.
But it's definitely worth checking out. You can go to newworkrevolution.com/manager, and that will get you there to check it out a little bit, learn a little bit more. And but yeah, other than that, as I've been doing every week so far, let's break with our last little piece here, which is the book recommendation of the week. So what's your status?
Book recommendation for the week. I'm going to switch gears. I'm not going to recommend a book. I'm going to recommend a podcast.
Oh, I like it.
Brene Brown, she has a podcast called Unlocking Us. And so my wife's been listening to this, and I've read a couple of Brene Brown's books. Really like her books, really feel like they're super great. And so she had a podcast in particular that I thought was really good for leaders. And it was from the author of Permission to Feel, Dr. Mark Brackett. Man, I'm telling you, I mean, he really talked about really tapping into your emotional health and just really tapping into your feelings. And if I think about anything as an early manager or a leader, I just did not have those tools at all. I spent so much time trying to ignore my own feelings because they were so painful that I numbed myself to that to that. And it really wasn't until it manifested itself in an ulcer. I got an ulcer. Billy probably remembers when that happened.
That's right.
Years ago.
I
I
always
mean,
thought it
one
was
of the
me.
most
I'm glad it
painful
wasn't.
things I've ever experienced in my life. And so my lack of feeling and emotion really manifested itself in a physical way, which it does for a lot of people. A lot of our physical ailments come from a lack of emotional health and
Yeah.
feeling. But I really feel like Mark Brackett really just touched on a lot of things that really getting in touch with our emotions and our feelings and things like that just really can create great leadership, can create great workplace dynamics and things like that. And this is something that I'm by no means an expert in, but it's something that I'm trying to learn and build my own skills in that better and better. And I just thought, man, that was so good. And there's a couple other podcasts that Brene had recently that I just thought were really good and helping us kind of navigate the emotions of dealing with what's going on right now, and just recognizing all the different feelings that we're having about society that feels a little uncertain.
So say it one more time, the podcast name and
It's
author.
called Unlocking Us by Brene Brown. And I would especially look at the April 13th episode called Permission to Feel with Dr. Mark Brackett. And I believe he has a book that's called Permission to Feel as well.
Awesome.
Really good.
Cool. Awesome. I like it. All right, we'll change the segment to just general recommendations. So whatever it is, how's that? That's
Yeah, fine,
the new
fine.
new version of it.
Okay.
I'm going with a book still today. This is one of my favorite books, and it is libertarian leaning. Talking about libertarian, since you bring that up, which is by Matt Ridley. It's The Rational Optimist by Matt Ridley. Have you read that one by chance?
No.
It is. I
No, it sounds
recommend
good.
it. It's an excellent book. He really dives into basically thinking about that we can be optimistic about our direction, because you see so much in society like we're getting worse. I mean, like that's how it always feels, right? Like things are just going downhill. Like we're more divisive and we're more politicized than ever, and this and that, and global warming, and you name it. I mean, just left and right. It's just life is getting worse in so many ways.
Mhm.
But he really looks at just history and the progression of history, and how things have really progressed in so many different ways, and how to really look at rationally look at where we are today, not emotionally. And so it's very encouraging in a lot of ways, and just gets you to think about things a little bit differently and not be so doom and gloom about the world these days. But definitely worth a look or read or listen or however you go about that. Rational Optimist by Matt Ridley, and then you can tell me what you think about it. So
Okay.
awesome,
So
man.
see, Billy went from like the logical brain, and I went from like the feeling
That's
part,
right.
right? So look, we hit both sides of the coin there. Nice
That's
job.
right. That's right. On purpose
We
entirely.
didn't even plan that.
That's right. No memos or anything. Awesome, man. All right. Well, that is today's show. My Business World Live. Thank you. Any closing arguments or anything from you? Anything you want to leave us with?
No, man, just everyone, man, be well, take care of yourself. If you need help and support, man, don't be afraid to ask people for help. Don't be afraid to ask someone for an ear. We all need help and support right now. So just don't be afraid to go out there and be that for someone else, and to receive it
Yeah.
from someone else as well.
And if you have any comments or anything else, I mean, this will be recorded as well, or it'll be posted that way, so you can leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. We'll be watching and responding to that as well. And aside from that, I am Billy Bush, and for Brandon Allen, this is My Business World Live signing off. Thank you.
All right, take care.